Hey, hey, Dufferin County, the girls are back. Welcome to That Thing Called Life. And normally I would be very prepared for this first segment and know exactly what we're talking about, but we've had one of those days here where all of our guests couldn't make it. So that's fine, because Hazel and I are going to do what we do best and just sit back and enjoy, because we're not sure where this show is going to go or where it's going to end up. Right, Hazel?
Right. Well, I actually think that this is a good example of learning to live in the moment.
Yes. Listen, we preach it all the time, and now you're going to see if we're actually
learning to
capable
go with
of doing
the
it.
flow.
Well, and truth be told, we were going to do just a round table discussion with a couple
Right.
of community members about, current events and not hot topics, so to speak, but just, sort of everyday life things, and the challenges that we are faced by some of those things,
Right.
and how different things have been in even just the last the last month. The world has turned upside down in the last month,
Yeah.
and we're not going to get into politics or religion, because that's not what we do on the show. But it's really kind of gotten crazy out there.
It has.
Yeah.
And I think as this, whatever we talk about today, I think a big part of that is learning how to actually go with the flow. Mm-hmm. Because things do happen, and they usually happen for a reason.
Yeah.
And so it's learning to kind of let go of control, because you think it's going to go this way, and then it takes this 90-degree angle curve.
My
and
morning
you think, oh
my morning started out great, and by the time 11:30, it just went bzzz.
Well, how many times does that happen to people, though? It happens a lot in terms of I haven't planned out what I'm going to do, and especially when you're teaching, like when you're in a classroom with, shall we say, older folks, not just kids, but when
Right.
you're in the classroom with adults, it's like you can have the agenda of what you're going to cover, and then something comes up, and it's really important for the group to have the discussion, so you kind of throw the agenda out and I think that's what we're learning in our lives these days, is we can't necessarily have everything planned out all the time.
No. Or sometimes when you really think there's going to be an outcome and you're attached to that outcome, and then that outcome totally does a 360, then what? And so actually this is an interesting topic, pardon me, because we're not going to speak about politics or religion or anything like that, because it's way too personal, and it's not what we do. Having said that, we can speak to the reaction that is happening in the political world right now. And the dramatic shift in protesting. Like, I remember when protesting wasn't about burning things or causing damage to things, and where did that come from? When did we shift from peaceful protesting? Not that every protest is peaceful, because it's not, and I get that. But even with the Women's March that happened across the world, there was some violence that was with that, and it was really supposed to be about women empowerment and women's rights, and for the most part it was, but it also turned out there were some vile things that were said. And
I think all of it, Kelly, like you look at the language that's being used with other human beings these days. I don't care where you are in the world, but I think we're seeing it across the globe in terms of they're attacking you. And when did that start? Because to me, we're all human beings. We all have emotions. We all have feelings, and I have to hurt you to get my point across or to get you to listen. And I think underneath all of this is that people are not feeling that they're being heard, I think. Right?
Sure. I mean, because there's too much out there to listen to, first of all.
Yeah.
So sure, I would agree with that. And I would also say...
wait. Was that one for me?
That
You
I
agreed with it?
agreed with you?
Yeah.
Yes, that was.
Because
Oh my
usually
goodness.
you don't.
I know. Well, so the caveat to that
Of course.
is that nobody has to hurt anybody.
No.
That's a choice. So if you choose to hurl out an insult in order to make your point or stand in defiance or be a right fighter, then that's your choice. And I think we were talking about this as we were thinking about different things we wanted to discuss on this particular show. Was, you know, so I'm 44. You
God,
have a
you're
birthday.
old.
Yeah, you have a birthday coming up.
Me too.
And there's an age difference even between the two of us. It's not huge, but there's a difference there. And I think about what is it about humans that is so different today than what it was, say, when I was 15 or 20 or 25. And the number one thing that kept coming back into my brain was the lack of empathy that I feel we have as a society these days. The unwillingness to receive something other than what you want to hear, or to give over to somebody because they really, really need it and not be afraid to do it. And I just feel like we're so, you know, what does that seek to understand?
Right.
Versus, you know.
You're quoting?
I know.
Quoting
I am quoting.
Stephen
What's
Covey.
happening?
Oh my
What's
God.
happening? I'm
actually, after what, 15, 20 years, I'm rubbing off on you. It's kind of scary.
Oh, you've done some good things.
Yeah.
I was going to say you've rubbed off a lot on me, but
Stop
that's
it.
just
Yeah.
a whole other topic
Can't
for
go there.
a whole different show. But I really do think that I think social media, and I know people are getting probably tired of me saying this because I say it quite a bit, but I think social media has hardened us. I also think it's made us dumber.
Well, there's the lack of interaction, right? Because you can be anonymous on social media. No, you don't have to show your face to anybody. You don't have to have this kind of interaction with people. And so when you say something and you see the hurt in someone's eyes, you don't get that on Twitter or Instagram or whatever social media you're using. You're really anonymous.
Yeah.
And that's the scary part. There's no sitting down across the table and having a conversation. And I think, too, you talked about being attached to an outcome earlier. And I think that's part of the issue, too. We are so attached to the way that we think it needs to be and negating everybody else who comes in and has a conversation that may be a little different perspective, but we're not willing to even open up ourselves to see what that perspective is, to see if maybe the two things can come together and make it an even better process or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's that whole piece around listening.
Well, and that
talk
empathy,
about,
I think, is really important.
And the empathy, 100%. And I find there's so much of a lack of it. And I get, you know, I quite often get teased because I am, believe it or not, even though I have a prickly outside, I'm pretty soft on the inside.
I like that, prickly.
For the
It's
most.
just prickly.
I'm just
I was going to say crotchety.
crotchety, yes. Very crotchety, grumpy today. But, you know, the truth is I'm very sorry. I quite often get made fun of for it because I am so sensitive. And, you know, something as simple as, and this, what Matt wasn't doing anything. I think he was giggling at me because I am so soft. But so Mary Tyler Moore,
Yes.
if you know me, you know I adored her as, you know, not just for what she did on TV and the Mary Tyler Moore show, but I just, everything about her I just sort of loved. And she's passed, and we were watching a 2020 tribute to Mary, right? So we get through the whole thing, and at the end they show that, you know, famous scene with the hat, and then they go all black.
And did you?
And Matt's sitting and I can see him looking at me, and I'm bawling. And then, so I look over, and he's laughing. So then I'm laughing, but then I'm crying even harder. Yeah. He's like, what the It's Mary Tyler Moore, honey.
Yeah.
But you know, something can be said for having empathy, and then something can be said for maybe having a little bit too much.
Well, I think though that probably was what it meant to you, that her and that show and what she did with her life. And I think there was a connection, even though you may not have met physically. There was a connection in terms of what she did, and so you lose that.
Yeah.
And that kind of defines something in your life that you're losing, right? And so you have to grieve.
And there's childhood memories associated with sitting down and watching the Mary Tyler Moore show. And, you know, I didn't have a strong mother figure. And so there was just something about her that I was, and I think that rings true for a lot of men, a lot of women, a lot of people out there. Yeah. And then in her personal life, she was flawed. but beautifully flawed. Yeah, she had addiction issues, and she had the tragic loss of her son, but she said, "Yeah, I've had these things, and guess what? I'm still here, and I'm okay." And she was never a tragedy, and I liked that about her. I liked that she stood in who she was, good, bad, whatever, and made no excuses for it whatsoever.
Right.
And I liked that about her.
Right.
And very much, and I think from watching the show, some people that watch it regularly would know that I'm very much the same way. I sort of step into my bruises and my scars and my brokenness and quirkiness, and
well, it's all part of us, right? And those people that try to have that perfection around them forget that there's a part that's our dark side, if you want to call it that way, right? We have to embrace all of it, right?
Yeah.
So I think it is getting back to the empathy. I think it's getting back to what you see happening around society these days is that people are not feeling heard. I think there was a swell in that there was a lot of apathy and not doing the protests or not going to any politician to talk about here's really the issues that I want you to be a representative of me. I think we've left it too long, right?
It's just
it's just like it was just like a swell, in terms of, oh my God. However, you asked for change. That's the other thing, right? You have to be careful what you ask for in all of this, because you asked for change, and you're getting change. And
he may have not won the popular vote, but he won the vote.
Yeah.
And so, it was no different than, when Trudeau came into power. He's now our prime minister. So whether you voted for him or not, becomes irrelevant.
Yeah.
Because then, we have to embrace him as our leader, because that's where we are. And to not embrace him is a knock against democracy, right? The people voted him in. He won fair and square.
Yeah.
And so we have to be. We're never going to move forward if we're always doing this with each other.
Right. And so there has to be, because what I was just going to say was there has to be on both sides a reaching out to sit down to have a conversation so that we can actually air our issues and air our differences and come to something that's going to work for everybody, right? Because it's not just south of our border. It's up here too in terms of,
we're in big trouble in Ontario. Let's be honest. I mean, we are.
Right. So why are you not reaching out to the people who actually pay all of this money? And I know we weren't going to get into politics and religion, but it's just, we can't sit back any longer and expect these folks that we've elected to look after us ourselves, right? We have to actually hold them accountable.
Yeah.
And part of that could be the protests, but part of it could be, let's all sit down and talk about some of this stuff.
Okay. Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. Well, we're having another earpiece problem, people, but that's okay, because perfect timing. We're going to break, and we will be back, and my earpiece will be back in.
I thought we were actually...
All right, we're back. Hazel cannot make me laugh because I'm having severe earpiece problems, and Hazel doesn't want to wear the earpiece, and so
my ears are too small.
It's for me to manage. So, as we were talking, so we were sort of getting on the whole theme of there's this disconnect between us as society, and then between us as, social media versus tactical human interactions. And that's where I was sort of going with, and it's maybe not the nicest way to say it, but I think it makes us a bit dumber. I think social media has made us lazier because we don't have to make the effort. And it's kind
let
of
me
made us
ask
dumber.
you this. when you're on social media and you look at a text or something that someone sends you, it's not real English.
Well, well, we should know IBM speak. It's acronyms, but it's really not. It's like forms of.
Well, when I said to my son the other day, "Are you home yet?" and it was R, the letter R, and U, the letter U, home.
Yeah.
It's just so we've created a whole different language, really. And there's all the acronyms, you know, the LOLs and the all of those.
Oh, now
things.
it's just a picture. It's a smiley face or a dancing hot dog, or you know, it's so which is by far which is one of my favorites.
The dancing hot
actually.
dog.
Yes,
of course.
I love hot dogs. But I digress.
So, but I think we have not. I think we're doing our younger generations a disservice by not allowing them or not guiding them to have that connection face to face.
That's because our younger generation is now being parented by the same social media, you know, gone are our generation. Once my generation goes, because my generation was just the cusp of social media.
Right.
The next generation are parenting these technology babies. And so I don't know that they were given that advantage. And this is a blanket statement, so, you know, with a grain of salt. And I'm sure everybody's a great parent. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is that they grew up knowing technology.
Oh, absolutely.
That's all they knew. Right. We grew up, you know, putting our bathing suits on in the morning, in the summer, up the cottage, getting on our bicycles with bare feet and riding around all day.
Yeah.
You know, like coming in when the lights go off and stuff. Very, very different brain, like mindset. Thank you. Wow. Thank God for you. So, you know, I think that social interaction, it's very hard to have empathy when you haven't had that it's not really a thing. It's not really relevant.
Right. And you know, so yes, that's for our younger folks, but now we have a group of people in the workforce who still don't have that empathy because I don't know where you came from and I'm not taking the time to even get to know you.
Right.
Right. I'm judging you by what I see, but that's not necessarily the real person.
Right.
Right. And we do that all the time.
Oh, we're always judging people. Yeah.
Within seconds of meeting, right?
Listen, I couldn't believe it. I had to literally take down my Facebook page that I've had since, I don't know, 2010, maybe 2011. I had to take it down the other day. And now I have a new small little one. It's just for close friends and family. It has a couple of feeds into it. You know, I've liked a couple pages on Facebook, like that thing called Life.
Of course.
And I will no longer get sucked into the sewage that's out there on social media.
So that's a really interesting point because I think you had a quote up just now that talked about 10% of what it is, what life is what happens to you. The other 90% is how you react to it.
100%.
Right? So even if we'll get back to the empathy piece, but it's how you react to that. And that's what you see happening, I think, all over the place right now. People are saying something and then you get a reaction. You're not even thinking about what's behind why they said what they said.
Yeah.
Right?
And did they really say it?
Like,
let's not go there, right? That's a whole new topic.
Fake, isn't that fake news?
So if my thing was the lack of empathy, that's the biggest difference I see in society today. What would you say? You can't steal mine. You have to come up with something more brilliant. That's why I like to go first, actually.
Can't I just do ditto? I think it's the communication. I think it's the one-on-one personal getting to know you. And I say that because there was an exercise we did when I was down in California at one of the retreats I did for the leadership program. And they sent us into a yurt. You know what a yurt is?
I know what a yurt is.
Okay.
I can't believe I know what a yurt is, but I do.
Yeah. So it's we all went there. There was 22 of us, and we all told our story.
Explain what a yurt is, because I don't think everybody knows what it is. To the audience, not to me. You're looking at me.
Well, I'm looking at you because I'm trying to figure out how to describe it.
It's like a hut.
It is a hut. I was actually going to say teepee, but it is a teepee kind of
thingy.
where I think you probably do vision quests and all of that stuff, right? So 22 of us, and we spent a good part of an evening just sharing our stories. And the thing that struck me the most was how similar our stories were. There was something that happened, you know, we had the childhood, it may have been good, it may have been bad. There was adversity in our lives, there was change in our lives, and the biggest thing that I walked away with is we all have similar stories. The names change, the circumstances change, but underneath it all, it's all the same. We're all human beings going through
feelings,
stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's how we deal with that stuff and how to not get attached to that outcomes, as you were talking about, in terms of this is the only way that can be done, because what you see and what I see are two different things. Because of your life experience, because of my life experience, we see different things, but that's where it has to come together.
Yeah.
So that's where I think, in terms of what's important, is that communication, so that I know where you're coming from. I know how you got to make the conclusions that you did in your head, right? And your perceptions.
Yeah.
And you know where I'm coming from, so that maybe we could come up with something that's better than both of what we've thought about in
Well, yeah, or maybe it's just, you know, you may not change your opinion about something, but maybe your perspective has shifted, or it just, you've looked at it from a different perspective and you still see it the same way, but you respect this person's opinion as well. Like, I love having a differing opinion. Matt and I have a differing opinion over certain things. I remember last year there was that thing that was going on where, you know, these jerks were live reporters were on doing the live news feed, and these stupid people were jumping behind swearing and saying something very, very vulgar. Right. And there was a whole kerfuffle because the one guy got fired from his job and stuff. And my stance was he should have, because that's really, it's not sexual assault or anything. What he said was vulgar, but it's an assault on somebody in their workplace. Right. She had the right to be on camera, live at a news feed. People around knew what was going on. She had the right to be able to do her job and not been verbally.
Well, there's another piece. It's the lack of respect.
Well, there's no respect. Right. But Matt and I differ on this a little bit. He agrees. I mean, what he said was horrible and the rest of it. But Matt and I disagree on it, and I'm not shifting what I think.
Okay, so there's another point. You kind of have to be open to hearing differing points of view.
Oh, I was open to his. I still hold true to the fact that if you're in that job role, you have a right to feel safe. If I was walking down the halls at IBM and a male coworker yelled over across the hall at me what that male did behind her on live TV, fired.
Yes. Well, different standards, right?
But they have a right to be out there and be able to do their job without having to deal with that. That was my only point. Yeah. And people see it differently. And Matt did see it differently. We kind of felt the same way at the end of the day, but we both came in at very different ways. And I appreciate his opinion. I just don't agree with that.
Well, and there's another important point, Kelly. So the it's not allowance, but I don't know what the word is. You have different views. You're not trying to, you may initially have wanted to change his way of thinking, and he may have wanted to change your way of thinking, but you have the openness and the connection to allow you to have your different views and allow him to have his different views. And there is something that comes together with even just understanding that, right?
If you take the time to listen to somebody and want to understand where they're coming from, you'd be amazing at how much you can learn, not only about the topic, but about that person, and collectively about yourself. I mean, that's the beauty of human interaction and sharing, is that, you know, the things that you learn can really have a large impact on you and on somebody else.
And here's another point. You can't always think that you're right. I know you do.
I think I'm right a lot of the time, but no. Listen.
Right?
Oh, hold on a second. I am the first one. Hold on. I am the first one to admit when I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the first one to say I'm sorry when I'm wrong. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I also have very strong convictions. Mm-hmm. I am my father's daughter, mm-hmm. so I'm stubborn to a fault. Mm-hmm. But I'm not a right fighter. If I stand in something that I'm really passionate about, and I really feel a strong sentiment for, especially if it's like the underdog type thing.
Right.
I'm a bulldog, and I know that, and sometimes it gets me in trouble. But I'm not a right fighter. I don't have to change your opinion. I just have to know that I'm standing in my own opinion and truth, and be okay that people won't agree with it.
And I think 95% of the people are right fighters.
I totally agree.
Right? And I think that's where we get in trouble too, in terms of this, your way is not always the only way. Mm-hmm. And you may think it is the best way, and it's not. Mm-hmm. There could be another way to do things that's different from what you're talking about, that may make it more efficient, more cost effective, whatever. You get into the business room, but put the two pieces together, mm-hmm. and it could be brilliant. Mm-hmm. But we don't allow that because we stop the communication.
Yes.
Right? Because it has to be my way.
And there's some, here's the deal. There's some, especially in business, when we're talking about being in a business environment, sometimes, you want to be the shining star, and you don't want to share because you want it to be about you, and you want to be the best. And, especially in corporate, you've got the type A personalities, mm-hmm. and there's some although I think all of us have narcissism.
Yeah, we do.
At one point or another in our lives. Some people have it all the time. Some people have pieces of it.
Yeah.
But we're all made up of all those little idiosyncrasies that we accuse everybody else of having. And the truth is, we all have them.
So this may get me in trouble, but sometimes when you label somebody with a label,
it's because it's you.
Well, you could be projecting. You could have some of that inside you, and you just haven't addressed it.
Right.
Are you losing your ear again?
As we get closer and closer to the end of the segment, I can feel that the ear, I know, although I have an awesome producer and staff, I know we're getting close to the commercial time, because
it's
she just told me that there's 30 seconds and this thing's about to pop up
there
again.
You go.
So but when we come back, I want to talk to Hazel about relationships.
Oh, jeez.
So we will be back in a minute. Get ready.
I can't.
Hazel's trying to get me in trouble, everybody. Everybody thinks I'm the bad one on the set, but it's really Hazel. She's trying to see if she can get away with swear words that aren't really swear words, but they're pretty close. She's trying to get that. That was one of your goals.
That was one of my goals this year.
So you will not get beeped with that particular word, Hazel, just so you know, but you should leave that word to yourself.
Yes.
It's not nice.
Yeah.
It's not very ladylike. So it's interesting because Matt was going to join us on set today and be part of this roundtable discussion. And one of the reasons I asked Matt is because he's probably one of the smartest people I know. Very, very eloquent in his words.
I kind of like him being our coach, though.
Yeah. So what you don't know is Matt's always here helping. So he's offset, but he's coaching us through the commercials. And I was saying, for somebody that didn't want to be on the show, he certainly has a lot of input to be giving.
But he always does. So stop that.
Listen.
It was just the way you said that. See, there's a prime example.
Yes, that's right. No. So he was talking about, before we went to this last segment, he was talking about how parents these days are extremely sensitive to youth, and we're talking children, like school age children, right? And their mental health, and how some parents are giving their children mental health days. And so the question is, as I think about it, the question is, so is that really a bad thing, or have we gotten way too sensitive to that particular topic? I don't know. Is it a topic that now, like, it's such an important topic because the stigma is slow. You can see it slowly shifting around mental illness.
So don't get me started on the whole educational institution either, right? Because that was a bugaboo with me and my youngest son in terms of what they wanted to do with him.
Right, because he had ADHD?
He was diagnosed with ADHD and they wanted to have him on drugs, and I said no, and so we went through all of that with them. However, having said all of that, I think we put tremendous pressure on our children when they're children. So why are we not allowing them to play more? Because from what I've seen and from what I've read in the studies, because I was looking at the educational systems all around the world, and so my youngest son was born in November, so he actually started
early
when he was 3.
Yeah, I
which
did
is
too.
Way too early.
Yeah, I did
right?
too. Yeah.
And we're putting all this pressure on them to conform, and that's the only word that I can think of, to conform in the classroom so the teachers can teach, right?
But what are they learning in kindergarten that's stressing these kids out? I don't get it. Like, but I'm also not a parent.
It's not necessarily learning, Kelly. It's you have to sit down. You have to sit still. Jamie was a wanderer, and if he was bored, he was gone.
Well,
right?
so there. First of all, they used to have harnesses for kids like that. I know because I used to have one.
Right?
But
he was very social, so he'd be visiting his buddies. So, okay, then allow them to play. Allow them to play. Not necessarily all day, because through play and through a lot of other, I don't know, music programs, phys ed programs, there's a lot of things that kids can learn at that social age.
Yeah.
Right. We're not doing that.
Why are we not doing that? I don't get that, because I remember, and
it doesn't feel like we're doing it. I just think we're missing out nurturing these kids, and it goes back to they're being brought up with technology.
The computers are bringing them up.
Right. So, and the computers are now in the classroom. How do we make sure we're all collaborating and talking with each other and having conversations? And that doesn't happen, because I bet you if you went into any, what were they called? The CAFs, the cafeterias in the schools, you'd see all the kids on their phones. So look at what we experienced yesterday.
So give the example of what we were just talking about.
So we were in a restaurant.
The Barley Vine Rail, which is my favorite place.
And Kelly, Matt, and I were sitting at the bar, and Kelly and I were having a conversation, and we happened to look up, and the waitresses, the kitchen staff,
everybody else,
and all the people at the bar, they were all doing this.
The only people in the entire place, and I would say probably 12 people in total. Hazel and I were the only 2 people.
It was actually
talking
fascinating.
To each other. Everybody was on their phone.
Fascinating to watch.
So is that okay? So yes, I think a big piece of that is social media and our desire to get instant information.
Right.
But is there an uncomfortableness in silence all of a sudden?
Well, people are very uncomfortable with the silence. So if we, you and I have been friends for a long time, so we have conversations, and then it's silent for a little bit. You have to be comfortable with that. You don't have to make stuff up. You don't have to do the small talk, because I don't like the small talk. Right. I like the conversation to be authentic, and I like it to be spontaneous, and I like to get to know you even more. And even after 15 years, we're still learning about each other.
Oh, we had quite a doozy the other day. We had a debate around my dining room table, and we realized it was so funny. Here's what was so funny about that is that we were talking to a girlfriend. Hazel was sitting across from me, and I was saying, well, take, for instance, this particular topic. Hazel and I could not be any further apart on the issue. And Hazel's response was, no, we're not further apart, are we? And I'm like, okay. So then we went there. We're so apart on this issue that I was like, how do you not know this?
Right. But that takes time to get to know people. Right.
Right. Yeah.
And I just think we have taken that away from everybody. Even us older folks, because I remember my dad in his 70s learning to be on the computer, right?
But why? So let's get, because sorry, I took us off track, but I'm going to put us back on.
Yeah, you did.
What is the big deal about? Okay, so Hazel and Kelly are over here, and I'm going to throw Matt under the bus because Matt was sitting beside me, and then a couple of his buddies beside him, And so then you and I got into a conversation. It was about the show, actually, we were talking about. And what is it then about? So we've disengaged, and now why do you have to go right to your phone? Why can't you just sit there?
So what was just coming up
Looks
in
like
my
David Putty from Seinfeld.
in my head about emails. How many times a day do you check your emails?
Well,
Now
yeah,
you check it more than once a day.
yeah,
Right?
yeah.
So when I'm sitting at work and I am checking my email every 5 minutes, or that computer screen is up there and I'm checking it constantly, it takes away from the time that I have to look at the person that just walked into my office to have a conversation about stuff.
Or answering your phone when
Right.
your business partner really, really needs you.
Yeah, it's because I know it's you and I just don't answer the phone.
All right.
Let's just
See how
get
that
that
goes.
straight.
Um,
But
yeah.
I think it's going back to, I would rather sit and look at a screen than look you in the eye and have a conversation. Not me, but that.
Yes, I was going to say that's not you.
No.
But you're again, broad strokes generalizing
Yes,
that.
absolutely.
But that's because again, like that's what people knew. I knew brownies. I knew figure skating. I knew up at the cottage. I
I
knew.
think there still is that, but they have tablets with them these days, or
Well,
they have
and
phones with them these
We
days.
had touched on that. The very, very first show we did, God, it feels
Yeah.
like forever ago, was on the difference between generations.
Right.
And what happened with me in that show is I came to this realization that, it's really unfortunate for youth and teenagers and young adults these days because I never knew what was happening in Russia when I was
Right.
15 years old.
Right.
I didn't know about terrorism.
Right.
I didn't see these horrific, violent images.
Right.
They're getting bombarded. And you know where I think this all started? And people are going to go, you're crazy. But I can remember being attached to the TV for about 2 weeks solid when 9/11 happened.
Yes.
And it was 24/7
And the information
images.
was instant.
Instant. And we all were polarized
that was
by it.
probably one of the defining moments of the world.
For sure.
Right.
For sure. But that's when for me anyway, that this instant
Information.
tragic horror
Right.
was playing out in front of our eyes, and it was so unbelievable because it was only something that you saw in movies, and here we were watching it unfold.
Yeah.
And youth these days, they're not shielded from a thing, and that's a burden. And then when we
It
talk
is.
about mental illness
health.
and anxiety and the rest of that, well, guess what?
Right.
It's no surprise.
Right. And I think it adds to, it makes them grow up.
Way faster.
So they miss some of that socialization that we were talking about, right? So now they have to deal with the tragedies that are happening around the world, and that's not fair. They should be able to enjoy their childhood.
Well, and I feel this is, and we won't get into this subject. I think you and I do agree on this subject matter, but I know a lot of people won't. But I felt that same way when this liberal sex education curriculum came out. I thought some of the curriculum was a little too early,
right.
in a child's
Development. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought, do they really need to know that in grade 3 or grade 4? Really?
Yeah.
I don't think they do.
Right.
Let them be kids. Let them eat dirt.
And I think that's what we've missed, right?
Yeah.
Let them have a childhood.
Like they don't
and
have to
the
be
age appropriateness, right? In terms
Yeah.
of where all the I go back to someone's attempt to make it better and easier, a little off the tracks, and let's just stand up to what this is, because that isn't what I want for my kids, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and that's and you can speak to that point better than I can. I mean, I don't have children, but I know what it was like for me as a little girl.
Yeah.
Especially having a very strong father figure in the house and having a mother that was great when she was great,
Yeah.
but then passed away when I was
Right.
quite young.
Right.
And so I think that had that curriculum that's introduced in the school these days been introduced to me in my little world at that point in time, I would have been very, very confused because I didn't have a home that had collective parenting. And I had a father that was staunch Irish, you're not dating until you're 20, and that pretty well much was the way it was in my house. And I would have absorbed this and then had nowhere to take it. And I think as a young girl, I would have been very confused.
Yeah. Anyway, we could go on and on and on about the whole curriculum again, but it's just...
Well, I just think it speaks to
I don't want my...
what our youth are going through now, and that we have to...
Well, in terms of the stress, right? I don't want my kids growing up when they're 5. I don't want them growing up when they're 9. I want them to enjoy their childhood.
And guess what? Stress management is playing hockey, going to dance lesson, enjoying gym, recess, putting down, like, that social...
And we're not saying that everybody doesn't do that, but I think there's you know, and you know, it's funny because in my generation it was the TV for my kids. Well,
the Idiot
I
Box.
came home and making dinner, go watch, I don't know, Polka Dot Door or something, whatever was on TV.
Did they ever say your name? Probably not, because it's Hazel.
No.
So Pokeroo never saw you.
No, Pokeroo didn't
I don't think he
me.
ever saw me either.
Of course he didn't.
I would wait. Oh, come on, Pokeroo.
Are you sure it's the right show? Or are you thinking about the one with the...
I see.
That's not Pokeroo.
Yes, it is.
No,
it's the Polka Dot Door. You don't know what you're talking about. We're fact checking this at the next commercial because I know for sure it's Pokeroo. It's Polka Dot Door.
No.
Yes, okay, what was it? You tell me.
I can't remember off the top of my head, but it was the magic mirror where she would say, I see blah, blah.
And say all our names.
Yeah.
You're so going down on this one. I know this for sure. And Tiny Talent Time. Do you know when I was a little girl, I still wanted to be on Tiny Talent Time?
I can see you doing that.
And I wanted to do like an on-location figure skating.
Yeah. I'm still scarred from not getting the pony that my dad promised me in Ireland. So.
And Betty Crocker.
But that's the part of it, right?
Yeah. No. And I don't want you to be disappointed, but we're going to break, so you're just going to have to hold on to that brilliant whatever it is that was bedroom now. Hazel's looking at herself in the big monitor.
I am.
Okay, so
let's just do this right up front. Who was right?
Hazel was right. You were right, Hazel.
So what was the show you're talking about and getting confused with?
It was
Polka Dot Door?
Romper Room.
Thank you.
Do you feel better now?
Yeah, I do actually.
And yet she never said your name.
She never said yours.
Kelly with an I?
Yeah.
It was always Kelly with one. No, I'm just joking. So that's funny. But okay, so isn't that interesting? Because we're like Romper Room, Polka Dot Door, which by the way I sang the theme song during the commercial break. So
she just had it wrong.
Captain Kangaroo, Jolly Green Giant,
all gone.
Muppets,
Friendly Giant, Jolly Green Giant is that what you said? It's the Friendly Giant.
Who's the Jolly Green Giant?
The guy on the peas.
Oh, it's the pea guy. Okay, the Friendly Giant.
Yeah.
Those were all interactive, Sesame Street.
Yes.
Is Sesame Street even on?
I have no idea anymore. I don't know.
It's just all those like sort of innocent.
Yeah. Well, Sesame Street was a turning point, right? With the whole, because it was a learning. They taught you your ABCs, they taught you your 1, 2, 3s, and all that stuff. So, I don't know what kind of shows we have for kids now. I'm not sure.
Well, I guess we're not really watching them.
Well, no, my kids are.
Your kids are big babies now.
Grown babies.
But I don't know that kids watch.
Don't know.
Cartoons and all that kind of stuff.
Don't know. Well, I'm sure they do.
Yeah.
Dora the Explorer and
I guess
Blue's Clues and
but
so
I can't remember watching like Strawberry Shortcake when I was like 12. No, is that long? Is that too late in life? Yeah. Well, I was a slow bloomer. My father liked it just like that.
Okay.
So let's move up because we've heavily focused on social interactions and the rest of that. I want to talk to you about something.
Oh dear.
Because no, it's nothing that we haven't spoken about before. But you're turning 60 in a week.
Yes, I am.
Yeah. What's transpiring for you? What are you feeling about that? Are you reflective? Are you? I
probably should be.
Right.
It is a milestone.
Yeah.
I don't feel any different towards, you know, people, I guess in my generation, it was the big 30. You turn 30, oh my God, it's all downhill from there. And then it was 40, and then it's 50, and now it's 60.
Right.
I don't think of myself even as 60.
Usually you don't think of yourself in terms of age.
No. Although it's interesting as I'm getting older. So my mom is going to be 90 this year, right? And so the calculation in my head was, so how old was she when she had me? Well, if I'm turning 60, she was 30.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then I look at my son, who is also he's turning 30 this year.
Right.
Right? So it's just that those are kind of the times that I think, wow, you're old. You've been around a long time, and should you feel any different?
No, I don't think so. I think, that whole cliche, age is just a number. I think you should feel how you feel in who you are and in your skin and all the rest of that.
One thing I think it does make you sit back and reflect on or think about is, what else do you want to do in your life?
Well, and I think that's a good, and that ties back into our last show. That we got actually a lot of really good feedback on, and that was about setting some goals.
Right.
What next? And you're like, listen, you've got great genes. Edna's turning 90.
I know.
And your dad had an illness, but he was still, how old was your dad?
He was 80.
80.
Yeah.
That's, that's significant milestones there, right? So you have a lot.
It was so funny. I had to take Mom to get a test on Friday, and her sister phoned. So her sister's 93.
Right.
So I answered my mom's phone because she had all this stuff happening with her. I answered my mom's phone, and my Aunt Maggie's going, hello? Hello? I said, Aunt Maggie, it's Hazel. Oh, hello? Who's that? Who's that? And she hands it to her daughter.
Right. Who's your age.
And so her daughter gets on the phone and says, hi, who's this? I said, it's Hazel. And she said, oh, she can't hear very well. You're going to have to yell. And I said, well, my mom can't hear either. Because number one, she doesn't want to wear her hearing aids. So she says, well, we'll just put them on the phone and they'll just yell at each other.
Figure it out. Like, that must have been quite the scene in the hospital.
This is what we need to look forward to.
Yeah, great.
So it's like, but one of the things that I was thinking is actually off of social media. There's all these feeds that come through too, in terms of 10 places you should visit, blah blah blah, right? And I thought, geez, that's something at this age that maybe there's an opportunity to see other places. Not that I haven't traveled around the world, but see other places that would be really cool.
Like places you have not been to.
Right. So I think it's now thinking about, okay, so in the next 10 years, what would I like to do? Right? There's even a point when you get to this age thinking about, when are you going to retire?
Right. Well, you can't do that because you're business partners.
Well, I can. I just hand it all over to you, which I do anyway, right? No. So, but I think there's a point in that in terms of, and all my life I've thought, I don't know if I could retire completely.
Right.
Or if I'd want to retire completely.
I don't think you would.
But you also get to the point, Kelly, too, where, and it's not just hitting 60, it was started in the 50s, that you see people around you pass away. And it really gets you to thinking in terms of, wow, it just seems that there's this age that people start leaving your circle.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, you know what? I always talk about how there's a silver lining to have lost my parents when I was young, because I was introduced to death
early,
and a close death like that. Right. Yeah, very, very early. Right. So the impact, I'll tell you the impact, and we're actually going to talk about this in the upcoming show. The most recent impact I had was a friend that last summer was murdered, and just downtown Toronto. Yeah. And I'm struggling with it.
Yeah, no kidding.
I'm really mad.
Yeah.
But I think because that was such a traumatic, like it doesn't happen to people it only happens to people that we watch on TV, right? I think that's why I'm struggling with it. But I was pretty lucky that I got to face the death and loss in a major way early in life, so that it's always sad, but I don't think it has as much. I think about my own death more often than I should.
Yeah, do you?
Yeah, I do. Don't. Yeah, I know. I don't, and I don't every day. I don't think about it, but once in a while it creeps in, and you think about You know, I had skin cancer. It was it
Right.
wasn't the worst you can get, but it was enough that I go to Sunnybrook and get checked
Yeah.
on a yearly basis, and I'm always, you know, cognizant of what's going
Yeah.
on with my body. My mom was adopted. She died before we found out who her family was. So now I'm on this journey to try and find out who the other half of me is and
Yeah.
what that means to me from a health perspective.
Right.
Because when the doctor, especially as a female, when your doctor's asking you about family history,
Yeah, you don't
and
know.
I don't have it from
You don't know.
my
Yeah.
mom's side, then I go through every test over and over and over again just
yeah.
to be safe, and thank God for that. But you know, in addition to wanting just to know who the other half of me is,
Right.
it would be nice to have sort of that kind of thing. So I think about that quite a bit because I wonder if heart disease runs in my mom's
Yeah.
real family or paternal family. I wonder if, you know, with cancers and,
Yeah.
you know, that sort of stuff. Now, it's interesting because Matt, I've been looking for my mom's parents now or birth family now for a while, and I got some not great news. As a matter of fact, we got it before we taped the last show. Just
That's right.
literally as I was walking out the door. And I was pretty upset. And so Matt, being the amazing man he is, brought home this beautifully wrapped gift about 4 days later, and I unwrapped it. It was the 23andMe DNA
cool.
testing kit.
Yeah.
And of course, I just bawled my eyes out because it's so thoughtful. And I thought, oh. So I sent that away on Friday. I'm excited to just see
Oh my God, that'll be interesting.
what it says.
See what
So,
she's made up
yes, what am I made of? The mystery will be solved, everybody.
of. But I think getting into the whole age thing, it goes back to that question: what do you want? Right. So you don't have to do anything, but there's a huge world out there and different places to see that have such history
Right.
that it would be so great if we had the opportunity to do that, even our younger selves. Because I
Yes.
have found that the younger folks that have maybe finished school and then traveled the world for a couple of years have such a different perspective on things, right?
I know. I wish I would have done that too.
Yeah.
It was one of those, you know, things where, you know, all of a sudden you wake up and life's taken over and you're 32 and you're married and
Right.
you can't go travel Europe for 6 months
Right.
and stay in
Right.
hostels and have that really rich experience.
Right. Well, you can if you decide to make that life change,
Well,
right?
isn't that interesting that I just said that and you
Yeah.
just said, well, you can.
Yeah.
You just
It's what you want, right?
Right.
Now, you're right. Life gets in the way sometimes, but that's too, if you allow it, the resentment builds up because, you know, I'm
Yeah.
married, I have kids, I've got a mortgage, I've got this, I've got that. There's nothing saying that you can't do what you need to do. Take the family with you.
Well, listen,
Travel.
Matt would have one Basset in a backpack
Yeah,
on
I
this
know.
side and the other Basset,
Yeah.
and then I would have the baby Basset, although the
baby's
baby
not the
Basset
baby.
is massive, so it would be quite the,
Quite the experience.
expedition.
Yeah.
But it is true. And it was funny because Matt and I were talking, we're going to Mexico in May for a wedding, and then we were talking about we want to try and budget in, one of our goals, life goals, is to travel
Yep.
once a year. And Matt said, I said, well, you know, I want to go somewhere different that I haven't been before,
Right.
thinking, you know,
Right.
Aruba or something. And Matt said, well, let's go to Europe.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
let's go to Europe. He's
Well-
been to a couple places. I've never been.
As a human race, you think of the history that's in Europe
Yes.
and Africa and even Russia and the United Kingdom,
Yeah.
as opposed to what we've got in North America, which is quite a young country, young
Yes.
civilization, right?
Yeah.
So,
And sort of scrubbed.
yeah.
Our country has sort of been scrubbed of deep, rich. I would say Canada less than the U.S. I think the U.S. has really been scrubbed of its rich history.
Yeah, yeah. But you walk into places like the Vatican.
Look, I
And
can
honestly,
imagine
Kelly, you walk in and you look around and your jaw drops because of the magnificent just sculptures and paintings and artwork and like even the floor and the ceilings. Like you just, and even in Britain, you walk into the graveyards,
Right.
the
yeah.
cemeteries, and you see these people that have been, you know, so
Yeah.
there is so much to see. So, you know, maybe that's as I turn 60 that I sit back and think, okay, so next 5 to 10 years, what do I want to do? Where do I
Yeah,
want to
and
go?
really do it.
Yeah.
Don't say, oh, I wish I could, you know,
Yeah.
we were talking about this Genkel thing where we go, when you just throw out the blanket statement,
Yeah.
it's
No, you set the goals, right?
kind
You
of
go
flies
back
there.
to,
Yeah.
and I have been fortunate enough to, you know, be in Europe 5 times.
Right.
I come from Ireland, so
Right.
I've been all over the British Isles. Would I love to go to Norway or Sweden?
Finland.
Right? I've been in Germany. I've been a lot of places, but maybe Asia.
Wow, you've really gotten around in your 60
I'm
years.
telling you.
Holy
Yeah.
cadiddle. No wonder you don't want a relationship. You're here, there, and everywhere. Nobody could keep up with you.
They can't keep up.
Well, we are rounding the end of the show.
Wow.
Thanks for playing with us today. We sort of had to jump in not knowing where this would go, so we hope that you enjoyed the banter between Hazel Baby and I. We certainly love doing the show for you, and if any of you out there have any topic ideas, if you want to be on the show, we promise we'll go easy on you. But we'd love to hear from you. We know you're out there because you've talked to me in Mochaberry. You know who I'm talking about.
Okay.
So actually, there is a lovely lady at Mochaberry who has a great life story. So maybe we can convince her. Anyway, everybody, thank you so much for watching, and we will see you in a month.